Hello and welcome to CapCity BTC, Sacramento's premier Bitcoin and cryptocurrency group serving Northern California. Enjoy the presentation.
I was just going to preface that David has been really active in our community, in the Sacramento crypto community and online for quite some time. He is an avid researcher on his own time, just for fun, about all kinds of different facets of crypto. And we love to hear all of his insights, whether it's virtual worlds or DeFi. He has some really cool stuff to show us about whale watches, which outside of the context of crypto sounds really weird, but everybody give it up virtually. If you're muted, it's okay. For David.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna give out my general disclosure that I give out on everything I do. This content is for informational and educational purposes only. You should not construe any such information or other material as legal, tax, investment, or financial or other advice. Nothing contained here constitutes a solicitation, recommendation, endorsement, or offer to buy or sell any security or other financial instrument whatsoever by the author, presenter, or other associated parties for the content that is being provided. Please do your own due diligence. I do not represent any websites that you're going to be seeing here today. I'm a user just like you guys, and I'm just sharing my information, so please do your own due diligence. And with that, I will get started. Let me share my screen real quick, and then we'll be on our way. And I want to share my other screen, screen one, I think it is. Yes, that screen right there. Okay. And the screen should be shared. You guys all see this where it says WBTC? I assume so. I can't see my screen. You can. Okay. So, and do you see the other page too, Jabron?
Yep.
Okay. So good. We're going to start. So just for those who actually aren't in the Ethereum network but own BTC, one of the wonderful things, there is a thing called WBTC. With this company, you can actually KYC and actually deposit your BTC and get what do we call a wrapped Bitcoin. And this will let you use that Bitcoin for many of the things that we're going to see in just a minute within the DeFi space. Another method that's not KYC is another one called WBTC.cafe, and that will let you do that as well. You can transfer your BTC into WBTC. Or another solution for that is using Curve, and Curve will actually let you do that. You got to go through some of these areas right here, and if you find it, you'll find a place where you can specify an address and deposit. Not going to go into the details of that. I'm just letting you guys know that there's opportunities to those holding BTC. Let's go start off over here. When you're dealing in Ethereum, one of the things you do want to pay attention to real quickly is gas prices. Gas prices fluctuate tremendously. Right now we're at 63, which is pretty good. We've been as high on GUI, we've been as high as like 600. And I've seen when I was first getting into this back in February and March of earlier this year, diving into this, I mean, I was literally paying, it was like something like 12 or something like that GUI. And it's gone all the way up as high as 600. So, I mean, you're looking at the difference of paying a $3 transaction fee going all the way up to a $40, $20, $50 transaction fee. So huge difference in transaction fees. So if you're in the Ethereum network and playing in DeFi, you definitely want to pay attention to gas prices when you're interacting with the contract. Why DeFi? Well, DeFi is better than your banks. If you're aware of DAI, DAI is a stable coin similar to USDC or Tether, which are pegged to the dollar. Right now, DAI in this account, which is Compound.Finance, is paying 2.84%. I don't think anybody else's bank can compete with that right now. Or USDC, which is pegged to the dollar, is 0.59%. Now, I don't think anybody's bank's competing with that either. So there are some benefits there. And then, of course, you can also borrow. Now, everything that's done in DeFi is typically what we call collateralized. So let's say, for example, that I wanted to put my wrapped BTC because you have all that Bitcoin that you're sitting on, and you actually want to utilize it. So what you do is you transfer into the wrapped BTC, deposit the wrapped BTC into Compound, which you will then get 0.98%. But then you can borrow any one of these other assets at these rates. And what you're doing is you're using your wrapped BTC as collateral for the loan and the other assets. So let's say you wanted to go short on Ether, which is, where is it at? Ether is right here. Let's say you thought Ether was falling. You took a loan on Ether so you could sell it short, and you make some money, you buy it back in when it's cheaper, and then you pay off your loans. These are the things that are going on in DeFi. This is where a lot of it started. The wonderful thing about Compound.Finance is Compound was actually paying you a governance token called Comp, right here, depending on how much you had. And so basically however you were using the platform would reward you with this token called Comp. And Comp allows you to act as governance in the system. And then proposals are up there, and then people can actually vote upon those proposals for or against them by holding Comp. The wonderful things in DeFi. Next after that came Aave. Aave was the another lending platform, which also allows different interest and borrowing, and this actually allows also stable rates. Now the problem with comp is the rates were all adjustable, as you'll notice on the page. We'll go back. These are all adjustable rates, annual percentage yield, but they're adjustable. So unfortunately, depending on what the lending and how much liquidity there is, the rates could jump really high. Well, thus Aave came out with stable rates, which is a nice advantage. And they also have a lot more different options than comp does currently. We're waiting on that. Aave is actually right now has a token called Lend, which is getting ready to shift over to a token called Aave, which will also allow for governance. So between this, there's so many different platforms out there that charge different rates. Well, so this guy came out with this program called Yearn.finance. Well, what does Yearn do? Yearn basically tries to balance tokens between different platforms to try to get a solid, get the highest rate. He has come across a problem with the fact that if you put too much liquidity in one, it drops the rate, and then if you try to shift it over, the rate will jump and move. So there's some issues. Each one of these is basically an experiment in finance, which makes it very interesting. But as you can see, the rates are actually fairly enticing. You can get 4.5% on a stable dollar, where your banks aren't paying that right now. So all this comes about. In DeFi, what really started off DeFi fairly on was Uniswap. Uniswap is a mechanism, is basically a decentralized exchange. And this decentralized exchange would allow you to change one token in for another. So what happens is people would provide a pool of liquidity into this pool of two pairs. And then what happens is you would basically go in there, select what your token, what you want, specify the list of tokens out there, and there's a lot of tokens. And that's why you need to do your homework. And then what happens, you would do, let's do this, sushi, let's add sushi. So if you submitted 1 ETH, you would get 273.99 sushi. And then there's also some, some, what do you call it? Some variance in price. There's liquidity fees and all sorts of stuff like that that goes along with it. And I'm not going to give all the details of that. But where I'm going with this is, this was the end all be all at the time. And then this wonderful thing came in called Sushi, and Sushi won the competition to Uniswap. And basically, SushiSwap was a fork of Uniswap. And then what they did is they basically said, hey, tell you what, if you bring over your Uniswap LP liquidity, basically tokens, your LP tokens, and you deposit in here, we're going to give you 126%. We're going to give you 36%. At the time, these were actually like 1,000%. Now you ask, well, how did they give you 1,000%? Well, it was easy. They based it off of the token they were issuing you. They were issuing you a token called Sushi. And Sushi today, I think is, let's go look it up real quick. I don't know. What I usually do is I'm a big fan of CoinGecko. So we'll go to CoinGecko real quick, CoinGecko, and we type in Sushi. And Sushi is $1.27. Now, it was $3 at one time or something like that when the hype was going on. But so anyways, we started calling this vampire mining because what happens is they were sucking the liquidity out of Uniswap. And now this thing has become the latest rage. And everybody's trying to chase the next one as they lose value. So then you got this other one like Rotten Swap. It's another version of the Sushi Swap. It's basically people forking code. So how do you follow all this, and how does somebody get into DeFi? Well, there's a few ways of doing this. If you're a bot, you're probably looking at pending transactions that haven't gone through the meme pool yet, and you're trying to find an arbitrage. Or you can look at the transactions that have already gone through. One of the things I like to do is whales. I like following whales. Now you can see that there's different levels of following whales, and there's so many different coins out there. But what I do is I like to go look at something like this. Like you go look at Twitter, and if you go to Twitter's whale alert, let's see, bring it up. Okay, that's coming up for a minute. We'll wait for that a second. We'll go to a different source. So I'll also use other sources. So for example, this is Aave. And what you can do is, the wonderful thing about Ethereum is if you like your wallets being secret, you are in the wrong place if you're in DeFi. And the reason is because if you go to things like that, you can go find stuff all over the place. Let's see, governance. No, not that one. That was the wrong button. Okay, sorry. Oh, view right here. So if you click on the view, you can see all the wallets that have voted right here. And you can simply click on it and go look at the address. Now, this is somebody's wallet. You can go look at what else they have and what they own. You can see all the transactions that they're doing. So this is like the epitome of like finding people's wallets and looking at what their wallets and what's in all their accounts. Now, so this is a great way to learn also. So for example, here's Whale Alert. So Whale Alert will often show you transactions that have been done, and they'll say, hey, this person just loaded in 100 million, and it'll give you a transaction number that you can go take that transaction number that you can follow it. So I've actually already done that. So what I do is I go like this, and let's save this real quick. These are different, not that one, this one right here. So these are different addresses. And these were a list that I went through, and these were all, I think I pulled a lot of these out of the Lend. And what I'll do is I'll search through Etherscan, I'll look for transactions, and what I'll do is I'll typically look for larger transactions. And then sometimes it's a little bit of a hunt. You are doing some searching. But then what I do is I go over to one of my favorite tools, and just so you know how many different yield farming things are out there, there's a lot. And these are all some of the recent ones right now. Okay, there's a whole bunch of them out there. But then what I do is I go to this wonderful tool called Zerion. If you've been with us long enough, you've actually seen a presentation given on Zerion by one of the people who work for Zerion. And then what I do is I take one of those wallet addresses that I have over here, and it's as simple as going like this and going click and copying the wallet address. Then you go connect, and when you connect into here, you simply click on the address and paste an address. It's easy as that, and you say connect. Now, I already have a whole bunch of addresses connected. Sorry about that. Okay, and then what happens is I have a list of addresses. I keep a fun list of addresses here. These are all the ones I kind of track and see what they're doing. And I bring it up. Okay, typically when you bring up an address, it'll look like this, $24 million. All right, and then you can see in Zerion, well, they have this much in savings over here, link. So the only problem about doing this in this method is you don't know the difference between, you know, if it's a contract holding it or if it's an individual holding it. There's a few signs we might be able to find, but you don't know if it's just somebody's big stash. You don't know necessarily a whole lot of information. You don't know all the information, but there's enough information to guide you down the direction of where you're going in DeFi. With this, you can see the savings, you can see the loans, you can see the total value, you can see what they're holding. What I like to do then is I like to go to the history. And in the history, I can actually see what this person is doing. I can see that this person borrowed $360, 1 ETH out of Aave. I can see that, you know, they borrowed, it looks like they borrowed some DAI, not enough though. I don't know what they're borrowing there. We can go through and see that they sent something to this address. And if we wanted to, we could copy that address. And then we can go here and we can actually paste an address and see where it went. Okay, this went to a contract. So then we can do more information. We can see, well, what that contract is. So this was a contract. We can see what the assets are. So look, this person right here sent in some ETH and some DAI into Uniswap. So they're probably right now that maybe they're trying to, I don't know, I don't think they can get Uni yet. But that was one of the things is because of Sushi Swap, Uni decided to do this wonderful thing, said, well, if everybody's going to do this, we're going to offer Uni. And so what they did is anybody who had an account in Uniswap prior to September 1st is given 400 Uni for free, which at the time was equivalent of about $1,200. So if you haven't gotten your Uni yet and you were using Uniswap before September 1st, go get your Uni. Anyways, so this is what I do is I follow these. I go through and see what they're doing. I track them, and I see, you know, if there's a separate, like here's an application. What I'll do is I'll look what applications they're using. If it looks like they're funneling something off, I'll simply click on those addresses and see where they're going. And it's amazing how much you can learn just by doing that. You know, I can go pull up another one. We'll just go grab some random wallet. Let's go something. We'll go up here to this one. Let's see. We can go explore. No, history. You know, and then you can see that, oh, well, there's $80 here. You know, click on that. Then you can enter it in, you know, into the address bar. Let's see. Just go up here, paste it again, and search. You know, and see what you can find. And so these are just some of the ways that basically I go through and I search whales and I search wallets, and now you can search too. And that's kind of how I go about figuring out what people are doing. As you can see, found his wallet as well. So there's just so many different ways of going out there and seeing what people are doing and following the latest trends and trying to see where the money is going. If you can figure out where the money's going, then you have a chance to follow along there too. So anyways, those are some of the suggestions and some of my strategies. As I said, I don't recommend anybody just jump in this willy-nilly. You have to do your own due diligence. As I said, all of this is risk. Basically, DeFi is a large financial experiment at this point, and it's interesting nonetheless. Anyways, I think that's about it, and thank you.
So,
Hey, this is Jack. I'm sorry.
Any questions? Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit conceptually about DeFi versus KYC and how they impact or don't impact each other?
Well, so we all know what KYC is, hopefully, which is know your client. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if KYC eventually shows its head in DeFi once the SEC gets in there. I think they're still trying to work on ICOs from 2017. But it's definitely going to draw attention. I mean, the DeFi space has literally gone from 600 billion at the beginning of the year to a little, I think, over $8 billion in the last like 6 to 8 months. So it's huge. There's not a lot of, I mean, there's a few sites like, so if you're going to do this wrap Bitcoin, you're going to KYC. If you go this way, the only reason you do this is because they actually lock up your Bitcoin for you. And if you want to reclaim it, then that's fine. These other methods like this and like this are actually using contracts. And so you're actually interacting with a contract with your wallet. So the question is do you trust the contract? You know, in like any contract, you know, there's a potential for exploits and you know, and hacks. So it's just, you know, that's why this whole space is such an experiment, because, you know, we're testing that, you know, these contracts have been audited. You're testing that, you know, that if there is an admin key in the contract, that person's responsible, you know, and so forth. I think Sushi Swap, I think he had like $14 million in sushi or something like that, and he returned them. But I mean, there's so much going on in this space, and everything's moving so fast that, you know, there's people that are just jumping in there without any reviewing of the contract and trusting it, and which is a high risk. Like if you go look at Yearn Finance, Yearn Finance literally said that my token's not worth anything. And if you go look at YFI, YFI was a huge one. YFI was the one that is I think it's at $26,000 for the token right now. There's only 30,000 of them. But in his Twitter feed, in his post, he said this token does absolutely nothing. It's worth zero. And he said, I completely just made this for myself. You know, he said, you know, it hasn't been vetted. Use at your own risk. And lo and behold, you know, and it's still at $26,000. So there's a lot of people trusting the system out there and trusting the code when, you know, it's still not 100% proven.
So David, can you take like, you know, let's say a lot of us, you know, in the crowd have ETH. Could you like take like 0.1 ETH and be like, oh, what should I do with this? And can you walk us through all the steps if somebody wants to get into deal?
Well, the hard part is right now, because of how high the gas prices are, it's really favoring people with larger amounts of money. And if, you know, so I'll admit some of the first mistakes that I did when jumping into DeFi was I would go out there and buy $100 worth of something and, you know, buy 100 tokens at $100. And the problem is because of the gas prices you're paying, you know, you have to make up your gas is costing you 30% of your transaction. So now you're going to have to make more than that 30% just to offset for your gas prices. Now, granted,
what are gas prices nowadays?
It's, you know, it depends on whether the GUI translates to. So this is like a millionth of a whatever. But the thing is it all depends on what contract you're interacting with, because the more complex the contract is, the more GUI it uses. And so it's kind of hard to show without actually doing a transaction. But I mean, you know, your typical transaction can cost you from $3 to, you know, $15 to $25.
Well, how come that one's saying 50 cents? How come it says 50 cents? It says
50 cents
right there.
Well, that's just probably just sending it from one wallet to another. But yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It depends. So like, there's another contract called Balancer, and it all depends on the complexity of it. You know, like if you go to Balancer is actually like Uniswap, but what happens is it solves the problem of being able to maintain the ratio. So what happens is you have impermanent loss in Uniswap, where if you put two tokens in, you could become heavier in one token than you can the other. And so what happens is Balancer try to solve that by keeping it balanced. So like in this, you'll always maintain a 63% maker and a 37% wrapped ETH. And the way they do that is basically like it's like a penalty for totally spacing on the term for it. Basically, they basically try to balance it out by, you know, favoring one over the other in an arbitrage to keep the ratios the same. So it's just, you know, it's one of those things that like the biggest problem I made too early was diversification. Because if you diversify too much, you know, you're just going to eat yourself up with transaction fees. You know, the most successful times that I've done in DeFi is when maybe I bought a token at 25 cents and I bought enough of it where it made a difference, and then, you know, got 3 times my value out of it. Now, I'll admit I never sold it because I'm still holding it. But it's those are the type those are the type of returns. Now, unfortunately, we saw last month a lot of things were hyped. We saw link shot up to like $18 from like 4, and then now it's back down to like 10 or 11. But anyways, like Uniswap is like one of these places that a lot of people are doing this, and the reason people provide pools or liquidity to Uniswap is other than the impermanent loss, which eats away at some of your value, they get a percentage of the fee from every transaction that goes through there, based off what their proportion is to the pool, and then also certain pools are being rewarded in Uni right now, and that's what with a lot of these right now. So if you provide Unicorn, which is Uni and ETH together, you're getting 39%, but that 39% is being paid out in Sushi, their Sushi token. In regards to KYC, right now there's not really KYC in here. Probably your closest thing to KYC is if you're in governance and you own a whole bunch of this, these are all people who own Compound. KYC, if eventually if one of these wallets interacts with an exchange, the government will be able to trace it to a wallet. So if you go to Coinbase and you transfer your ETH into a wallet somewhere, I guarantee you Coinbase, I can't guarantee it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Coinbase has a record of your transaction. Not only that, but most of the time, if you're pretty secure with Coinbase, you're more than likely whitelisting those addresses in Coinbase. So more than likely they're recorded there in Coinbase. So they know what they have. And then from there, once you have the root address that you're transferring to, you can trace any wallet from another wallet within the Ethereum network. You can try to obfuscate things, but I mean, I don't think it's too hard to find you.
There are a few questions
Yeah.
and actually also for people who would like a resource, kind of navigating all of these things. Do you have something that we can throw in the chat again so people can?
Yeah, I'll put up my DeFi chart. Unless you guys have it, and then I'm in the Discord. I'm Dr. Ankin in the Discord. You guys are welcome to hit me up if you have questions. I don't give any financial advice as to which coins to buy and whatnot, just because it's not right.
Cool. Steve does ask a question. What's the best site to find out the best returns?
Oh, the best site to find the best returns? That's it. Well, I think that depends. The hard part is it really depends on your risk tolerance. Just because it's like, this is, Compound. Compound has some of the lowest rates. I like Compound. The reason is because I know they're in San Francisco. So I know that if the government's going to come here and start regulating this stuff, I have a feeling that they're going to regulate a company more favorably that's in our own country than Aave, which is, I believe more British related. I don't know for certain. But if it's a foreign company or such as a Cream Finance is a fork of Compound. And the thing with Cream is basically a Taiwan version of Compound. And so because of that, I think the government is eventually going to crack down on some of these. And so it just depends on, how much risk are you willing to take? If the government says, hey, anybody using this platform can no longer use it. Now, can they shut down a platform? Not really, because this is all contracts on the Ethereum network. You can actually interact with most of these. So if you were to go on here and actually find one of those contracts, I don't know if I have one on here. If you were to find a contract, you can actually interact with the code through here in a more crude method. But the thing is, could the government block the site, the IP address and stuff like that? There's definitely methods that they could probably do. So it's just, there's this level of risk. And obviously you can go jump on the next speculative thing and there might be a high rate of return for a short term, but there's also a good chance that if you hold it too long that you're going to get burned. And the thing is also, even though there's a higher rate of return at first, the more people that enter in it, the rates begin to drop. And that was one of the things that you noticed over here in Yearn. Yearn Finance was actually offering like really high rates, like 33%. You can just see it just changed right there in front of our eyes. But it was offering like 33%, I think, on ETH for like a day or two. And then enough people piled in that what happens is it pushes the rates down. So just because you see a good rate today doesn't mean you'll see a good rate tomorrow. And that's one of the problems is you could really get eaten up really quick by using gas fees. I know a guy that this last year he's been trading crypto for a year now, since August. Started with, I don't know him personally, but I've talked to him through Discord, talked to him for a long time, so I trust him. But he started with $55,000, and he's literally made $1 million, returning 300% a couple times. But the guy spent over $2,000 in gas fees. I mean, he won't blink at spending $100, because if he's doing a $10,000 transaction, $100 gas fee just to get through and get out while he's making his money before the price drops is worth it for him. And so you got that kind of price risk, because not only that, what you got to watch out for is you have these pending transactions. And if your gas prices aren't high enough, what you'll get is you'll actually get bots that will watch your transaction. They'll see a big transaction coming through, and they'll actually arbitrage you by paying a higher gas fee and jumping in front of your transaction. So, yeah.
So what happens if they jump in front of your transaction? Who cares? Right?
They could jack up your price in front of you if it's a big enough. The price could change on you. And there's all sorts of stuff that can happen, man. Or if gas prices go high enough, it's not like Bitcoin. In Bitcoin, eventually your transaction will go through. You wait a couple of days. In Ethereum, your transaction can actually fail if you don't have high enough gas prices. So if all of a sudden gas shoots up in price and you didn't put a high enough gas amount and you interact with the contract, you will actually contract will fail, but you will still be charged a slight amount for the failure in the gas.
David, if people have more questions, can you add the Discord link in the bottom, and that way they can, after this event is over, they can continue to ask you some questions. Or if you have a LinkedIn or Twitter.
So if you have questions after this, go ahead, and we have a DeFi section in our Discord, and then what I'll do is I'll share that. Go ahead and come there and join me, and if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Cool, awesome. Thank you so much, David.
Yep.
Everyone's muted, so you can't hear anybody clapping.
It's all good.
That's just nature of being virtual now.
Hopefully everybody enjoyed that. Hopefully it was informative.
Yeah, I definitely learned about some DeFi projects that I was not aware of previously, so that was super awesome.